Jose Mourinho's early AS Roma tactics may have surprised a few spectators. Not the formation, but the positive football that has been on display at the Stadio Olimpico. Jose has managed in 4 competitive games so far, with a 100% record, scoring an impressive 12 goals with just 2 conceded. In today's tactical analysis, we'll look into Jose's early tactics and why they have worked for him so far. Furthermore, can it continue? We also have the Football Manager 2021 Jose replicated tactic. So, if you are enjoying this type of content and you want to support the channel, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, you can share it, but also in the comment section, comment down below what tactic you would like to see next. But for now, let's get stuck into things. So far in all 4 matches that Jose has managed, Roma have lined up in a 4-2-3-1 formation, which has served them reasonably well. In both Serie A games, Mourinho fielded the same 11 but was forced into one change against Salernitana, which saw Carlos Perez come in for the suspended Zaniolo. In practice, both of the wide men in Jose's 4-2-3-1 shape invert, whilst the fullbacks push up high and wide. The 2 in the pivot tend to hold their position in midfield, preventing counter-attacks in Jose's so far positive approach. When building from the back, Roma's fullbacks would push up high and wide, and Brian Cristante would drop deep to collect the ball and dictate play, setting the tempo for the Roma side. So far, Jose's side has remained very patient in their build-up and would often form a box or diamond shape with both central defenders and a double pivot. According to WhoScored.com, Roma have the highest average possession from the opening 2 games, enjoying 59.4% of the ball, but largely down to them having 80% of the ball against Salernitana, who were happy to defend in a deep 5-4-1 shape. In their most recent game, the 2 central defenders alongside Brian Cristante happily circulated the ball while slowly progressing inside the opponent's half. Often, it was a 4 versus 1 and Roma had no issues finding passes in the early stages. Once the ball has been worked into the opponent's half, Roma looked to play the ball out wide in a bid to stretch the opponent's 5+4 defensive shape and open up space in between the channels. Roma's attacking 4, both wingers, attacking midfielder and striker, also share the responsibility of dropping deep to receive the ball. In turn, disrupts the opponent's defensive shape, as the player who dropped would often be followed by a defender. Roma have been effective in getting the ball inside the box and creating good scoring chances. In the opening 2 games, Roma have had the most touches in the penalty area with 48 and have had the greatest expected goals with 4.99, highlighting their positive approach so far. The wingers have been the primary source for creation. As we've touched on before, the attacking players share the responsibility of dropping deep to receive, usually dependent on the side of the ball, where either of the wingers can drop deep before turning and looking to play a defence splitting pass in behind defences. Carlos Perez versus Salernitana was extremely good at this and very difficult to pick up, whilst always having the fullback overlapping, causing the defence to retreat and give Perez more time and space to pick out these key passes. Interestingly, all of Roma's 36 attempts at goal, the most in the Serie A, have been from open play, showing their good possession play. They generally look to work the ball into the box but are not afraid to shoot from outside the box if the chance to work the ball is not on. For Roma's opening goal during the 4-0 victory in their most recent game, we have a good image of their attacking shape and how they work the ball into the box by getting the ball wide, opening up a channel for Pellegrini to penetrate and eventually score. Tammy Abraham has also started very well and has been a typical Jose striker. He has so far shown his strength and power, but also very smart off the ball movements. Tammy has played a significant role in stretching defences and becoming an attacking outlet, allowing Roma's deeper players to advance by holding up the ball. Abraham so far has 1 goal and 2 assists in his first 2 Serie A games. When Roma win the ball back, they look to make counter-attacking movements to put the side back on the attack instantly, but when they lose the ball, they hold or go back into the defensive shape rather than having multiple players press to win the ball back. Roma look to defend in their 4-2-3-1 shape in a mid-block of some sort. When the opponents build from the back, Roma don't necessarily work to prevent this and are happy to allow the opponents to have possession, as they make it more difficult and challenging to be broken down. They remain compact and are also happy to concede the wider areas, blocking off routes centrally by careful positioning. Tammy Abraham positions himself between the defender on the ball and the central passing option, blocking that passing lane whilst the Roma midfield mark tight, forcing the opponents out wide. When the ball does eventually go wide, the ball-sided winger will leave his narrow position to close down angles for the wide man on the ball. This forces Fiorentina, in this case, to play backwards. This then triggers AS Roma's press and pressures the opponent's defence to make an error or play an uncharacterised pass. As we can see in the images, Roma's press forces Fiorentina backwards and they eventually play out and broke Roma's press well, but this is an indication of how Roma look to set up without the ball. Patient with their press and only will do when they force their opponents backwards. Deep inside their own half, this defensive principle remains. They will drop deep, remain compact and narrow, forcing the opponents out wide. Once the ball is played out wide, Roma's ball wide players will start to apply pressure to force the opponents backwards. This triggers Roma to then press, allowing Roma's defensive line to push up and not remain deep. Roma's PPDA is at 9.11, which is higher than the league's average at this moment. So though they are not displaying the most intensive press, they are also not just sitting back, remaining overly cautious as some would have predicted. They remain patient in breaking their defensive shape, which equals to low interceptions and defensive duels, and in turn, they become tough to break down. They are ranked 5th with the fewest shots against per 90, 7.03, which is just one shot difference from the actual fewest. Moreover, according to Yscout.com, their challenge intensity, which is duels, tackles and interceptions per minute of the opponent's possession, is at the league's average at 5.55. But unfortunately, that wraps up my Jose tactical analysis, which is his early tactics so far at AS Roma. Of course, during the season, things may change, as we know that Jose Mourinho is more of a reactive coach than a proactive one. But now we are going to go into Football Manager to look at my replicated Football Manager tactic for Jose Mourinho. So now, let's head over. So here we are in Football Manager with Jose's early tactics so far. So we're going to go through the team instructions, the player roles and instructions before lastly looking at the results and how well did Roma get to do using this tactic. So for the team instructions, with the mentality, we are using the positive mentality. Roma so far have been showing some positive attitude during their matches, but of course we are expecting Jose to be a little bit more reactive. So when you are playing against the big teams, you can drop the mentality down to balance. With the attacking width, we are set to fairly wide. We do want to use the wider areas, and in the approach play, we are going to be playing out from the defense. For the passing directness, we are on shorter and the tempo is on standard. Roma like to play out from the back. They like to play short passes but also remain patient in their build-up. In the final third, we are going to be sending in whipped crosses because Roma like to get players inside the box. Sending whipped crosses in the box can be more difficult for the defense to deal with. In transition, when the possession has been lost, we are going to regroup, try and get back to our defensive shape, back to our 4-2-3-1, and when the possession has been won, we will make our counter movements, which is of course vital for a counter-attacking team. When the goalkeeper is in possession, he will distribute it to the centre backs by taking short kicks. We want our full backs high and wide during the build-up phase, so we don't want them dropping deep to collect the ball. They can go high and wide whilst the centre backs come and collect the ball, and the two in the midfield pivot can drop deep as well, being a support for the defenders. Out of possession, we are using a standard line of engagement. We aren't going to be pressing high, we are going to allow them to build out from the back, but we are using a higher defensive line to try and remain compact in between the lines. We are using the narrow defensive shape to force the opponents outside. We are using the tighter marking, more pressing intensity. So once we are settled in our defensive shape, we do then want our players to leave their defensive shape in order to win the ball back. We aren't just going to sit in our defensive shape constantly. We do also want to try and win the ball back. And lastly, our tackling, get stuck in. Now, Jose's team so far this season don't really get stuck in, but on Football Manager, this just improved the results massively. I mean, if you remove this one instruction, it could be the difference between drawing a game and winning. But that there is the team instructions. Now for the player instructions and their roles. There aren't really many instructions anyway, but for the goalkeeper, he's the goalkeeper under defensive duty. In central defense, we have 2 central defenders with no added instructions. The same applies for the fullback, who are fullbacks under attacking duty. They have no added instructions as well. In central midfield, we have a central midfielder under defensive duty, someone that's going to be controlling the tempo of the game. He's also going to be holding his shape and sitting deep, trying to prevent the opposition's counter-attacks, while his midfield partner is a central midfielder under support, trying to be a more versatile link between the defense and the attack. On the flanks, we have 2 inverted wingers. They are probably the only players with instructions. They are going to be taking more risk, shooting less often, and also sitting more narrower, becoming more involved in the attacking play. In attacking midfield, we have a shadow striker, which for me has to be Pellegrini, someone that's going to get in the opponent's box and become a goal scoring threat. He did score 2 goals in the last game, doing exactly this, attacking the box from deep. And lastly, up front for the Tammy Abraham role, we do have a pressing forward, and he does actually have an added instruction as well. He's going to be more individual on the ball, trying to dribble more, trying to run at the defense, as well as bring other players involved as well. So that there wraps up the Jose tactic. It's a 4-2-3-1 of course, but now we can go to the results and see how well Roma did, or how bad Roma did, using this tactic. So for the competitions in the Serie A, we finished 3rd, and actually we dropped down to 3rd on the very last day of the season. We were actually 1st and we dropped down to 3rd on the last day. We bottled the last day. I believe we drew at home. AC Milan and Lazio both won the last game, which put them 1st and 2nd respectively. But in the Europa League, we did manage to win that. We beat Real Madrid in the final on penalties. That there is very impressive. We had 19 shots compared to their 2, and we had a higher XG and more possession of the ball. Roma played very well in that game, and we are also predicted to finish 6th, I believe. Yes, the media prediction is 6th, and we finished 3rd in the Serie A, so we did overachieve in the Serie A, and we also hit our minimum targets in the Europa League, but we went 1 step further by winning it. In the Coppa Italia, we got knocked out in the quarter-final by Lazio. Looking at our 4 losses in the league, they all were 2-1 defeats. We lost 2-1 against Sassuolo, Fiorentina, Cagliari and Empoli. Our draws came at home to Hellas Verona, away to Juve, at home to Inter, away to Torino, at home to Milan, 2 away draws against Sampdoria and Hellas Verona, and then a home 2-2 draw to Lazio. But if we check some of the stats in the league when it comes to most goals, we scored the 2nd most goals with 82. We had the 2nd most shots with 659, but we had the fewest shots against, highlighting our very good defensive work. For the pass completion, we came 4th with 90%. With the average possession, we are 2nd with 55% of the ball. For the most tackles won, we aren't in the top 8, and for the most dribbles made, we are joint 3rd with 118. Defensively, we done well. We had 20 clean sheets, and we conceded the 2nd fewest with 26. Now looking at the player stats, Tammy Abraham is in the top goal scorers list with 18 goals. He finished 3rd. For the most assists, we don't have any players in the top 8. For the most shots for, we have Tammy Abraham in 3rd. For the most man of the match awards, we have Jordan Veretout with 9 man of the match awards. Tammy Abraham had a very good season. He has 6 man of the match awards. For the most key passes, we have Jordan Veretout on 129, and Florenzi also on that list with 123. Now this goes to show you don't necessarily have to have a playmaker for him to kind of playmake. We can see Jordan Veretout with 129 key passes, though he played as the central midfielder under defensive duty. For most tackles won, we don't have anybody in the top 8. For the best pass completion, we have our centre back on 97%. For the most dribbles made, we have Zaniolo on 28, Tammy Abraham on 23. For the most clean sheets, Rui Patricio on 20, and for the fewest conceded, our goalkeeper with 26. Now, we can look at the schedule, see where it went right, see what went wrong. We started off very well in the Europa League qualifying stages. Well, we started very well in all competitions, to be fair. Our first loss actually came in January, on the 2nd of January, away to Empoli. And then we went on another little winning streak before getting a draw, and then a heavy loss in the quarter-final of the Coppa Italia. We ended the season fairly strong. We also lost 2-1 away against Sassuolo, which we really needed to win, and on the very last day all we had to do is win the game, and we drew at home to Hellas Verona. But we did beat Real Madrid in the final, so you can say it was worth it, as we did end with a European trophy, and now we have qualified for the Champions League next season. Lastly, for the results, and you can go on my website to look at more of the stats, but we can see the top goal scorers in the squad in all competitions and the highest assist. Tammy Abraham, no surprise, scored the most goals. Jordan Veretout got 17 in all competitions. Zaniolo got 13 and El Shaarawy got 11. For the most assists, Florenzi got 11 in all competitions. Jordan Veretout got 10, Zaniolo got 10, and so did El Shaarawy, he got 10 as well. Our shadow striker Lorenzo Pellegrini, he scored 9 goals with 9 assists. Carlos Perez, who played as our backup winger, he scored 6, got 8 assists. But unfortunately, that wraps up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have, make sure you are subscribed, make sure you like the video, and you can share it, leave a comment, whatever helps the channel grow, that would be appreciated. I will speak to you guys soon. Make sure you look after one another. I appreciate you all. Stay safe. Peace out.